John Parker Romo, you got to go.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. Now, guys, today we are doing our rapid reaction to the Falcons' 24-23 heartbreaking loss to the New England Patriots in Week 9. The Falcons finally showed some fight, and we'll talk about why that has me feeling better about this team coming off some of the losses despite today's loss. We'll talk about the biggest reason for that loss being the kicking situation, as well as some of the other things that hurt the team. Talk about Michael Penix looking pretty good on the road and how this, potentially was one of his best games of the year. Drake London's big day, Jalon Walker's big day, some of the other guys in the secondary struggling. We'll get into all of that. And of course, I am here, your humble host, Aaron Freeman, been covering the Falcons for 20 years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP, still going strong on this podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that despite the disheartening loss suffered by the Atlanta Falcons, you are still riding strong with me as everydayers. That means you make it your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer, subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, biggest reason for the loss, big story coming out of this game is the kicker. All right. John Parker Romo cost the Falcons dearly, and I believe this will be John Parker Romo's final game in an Atlanta Falcons uniform. He missed a point after touchdown that would have tied the game 24-24 in the closing 5 minutes of the game. And that proved ultimately costly in the 24-23 loss. Now, the Falcons did get the ball back again. Unfortunately, we're not able to take advantage to move the ball down the field in that situation. But even if they had, would the Falcons have trusted Parker Romo to go out there and make the kick? Probably not. And so we've been talking all season long since week 1 about the kicking situation. Younghoe Koo missed a potential game-tying kick against the Bucs that proved costly. The Falcons moved on from him after that week, and then bring in John Parker Romo, and it's been up and down for Parker Romo in the week since. And I think today was going to be the last straw when it comes to that. I think Jarvis Davis said it perfectly on the Falcons squad post-game show, where Younghoe Koo had built up enough equity that you gave him multiple opportunities to sort of win you back. John Parker Romo has not built up that type of equity. He's basically had one good game against the Vikings and then a whole bunch of meh at best. And so I think this is going to be the end of it for, John Parker Romo. And I suspect that the Falcons will be replacing him this week as they head off to Germany. Will it be none other than German's favorite kicker, Lenny Krieg? We'll see. The Falcons have 2 rookie kickers on their practice squad. Ben Sauls out of the greatest university in the history of sports, the University of Pittsburgh, and then Lenny Krieg, the German sensation. And I think it's time to see what one of those guys has. And of course, just the serendipity of heading on to Germany means it feels like this is the week to give Lenny Krieg his chance going into this game and kicking in front of his home crowd. But famous last words. I feel I feel like there's no way Raheem is going to run it back with John Parker Romo this week, but you never know with the Atlanta Falcons. So, mention the drive after that missed PAT. You had another costly mistake on an intentional grounding from Michael Penix. You also had some questionable clock management in this game where the Falcons had another procedural issue on the road, which has been a far too consistent through line, where they were forced to burn a timeout about midway through the fourth quarter, coming off of a penalty. I forgot what happened. It was a penalty, right? And then, in order to avoid a delay of game, the Falcons, there was a penalty on K'Lavon Chaisson on the previous play, and the Falcons, were just twiddling their thumbs on the sideline, and then they had to burn a timeout to avoid a delay of game, and that left them with one less timeout And that ultimately, proved costly in where New England was able, after the Falcons, had that costly intentional grounding. New England basically had to get one first down, and they were able to do so on a rub route for Hunter Henry to sort of seal this particular game. But despite those issues in this game, by no means a clean game, I tend to look at this game as a glass half full type of performance, an improved performance for this team that has really struggled on the road, particularly when it came to the quarterback. We'll talk more about Penix's performance a little bit later when we get to the Penix pump meter, but it's good to see the Falcons showing some fight for once. That has been far too consistent an issue where this team has gotten down, and it's just like, well, that's it, and they were able to climb back in this game. Understandably, people are going to still be upset. No one enjoys a loss. But, unlike last week, you're not going to get a crash out from me. This feels like a quote unquote normal loss to me, where the Falcons were competitive down to the wire. And unfortunately, too many of the breaks went against them to come away with the victory. And I told the insiders the Locked On Falcons Insiders, you can join at the link in the description below. You get my live updates during the game, in addition to, access to the extended all 22 reviews that we do every single week. But going as we were nearing halftime and the Falcons were down 21-7, and the Falcons had to turn over on downs after the 2-minute warning. And I basically told the insiders, like, yeah, if New England goes down the field and scores here and they go up 3 scores, it's a wrap. There's nothing that we have seen from the Falcons that shows that they're capable of coming back down 3 scores. I know some people, I had a couple of insiders being like, why did the Falcons go for it on that 4th down instead of kicking the field goal? And basically my explanation was like, being down 11 at that point doesn't do anything for you. Being down 7 does do a lot more for you. So going forward in that situation, unfortunately, the Falcons did not convert in that situation. But with the Patriots getting the ball back, then Jalon Walker gets the sack strip, James Pierce recovers it, and the Falcons set up Drake London's 2nd touchdown of the game, and they cut the lead to 21-14 for halftime. And that to me was a huge momentum swing in the Falcons' favor for once. And so, if you're ticked off at this game, hey, do you? I'm not going to tell you how to feel. But to me, it was somewhat encouraging to see this team showing some fight on the road, where they have shown almost no fight too often in the majority of these road games, especially going up against a good Patriots team that is very likely to make the playoffs. So I take it a positive way. It's not to sit here and say like, oh, the Falcons have won me back and we're back on board and the season's back. No, like, as I told you guys last week, I've given up on the hopes of this season, me and a playoff team having a winning record. As I told you last week, it to me is at a point where it's just really about evaluating some of the young players. And one of those young players is Michael Penix. And I liked what I saw from him. He almost had a 2-pump performance, but unfortunately, I feel like I have to fall on the sword because I felt like I jinxed that performance. And I'll explain what I mean by that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
And today's episode is also brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventories and honest lead times are going to keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Supply House will save you time on your next project. If you need parts fast, the next day delivery is going to help you, as well as the part finder tools and 3D schematics, which will save you hours when you're looking for the perfect part, and every detail matters. It's not just the time you save, but also the money you save with Supply House. If you join the free Trademaster program today, you can score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. So visit supplyhouse.com and sign up for free and use our promo code SHNFL5 and you'll get 5% off your first order. That's SHNFL5 at supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. So let's get into the Penix Pump Meter, a weekly feature on this podcast. Not last week because of, we had to go back to the Kirk Cousins chaos meter, but the Penix Pump Meter, where we have 4 different levels of pump to judge the performance of the Atlanta Falcons young quarterback. 0 pump basically means it was a very underwhelming performance for Michael Penix. 1 pump means it was a solid sort of game manager type performance. 2 pumps is peak Penix, right? When that pump is fully on. 3 pumps is just 1 pump too many, right? Where it goes into the negative side of things. And to me, I'm giving it a 1.5 pump performance. We almost had a 2 pump performance. And then we had the intentional grounding, right? And that's where I feel like I jinxed it because, telling the insiders during the game after that touchdown drive that should have tied the game, I was like, I think we got a 2 pump performance. And, Parker Romo misses a kick, and then Falcons get the ball back. And, it's, I forget if it was a second and whatever it was, 2nd and 10, I think it was. And the snap comes too early. Penix isn't ready for it, right? That leads to Javon Gwynn not getting out of his stance. And so I can't remember who the pass rusher, if it was Milton Williams or Christian Barmore, but one of their D linemen was able to just run free, and Penix was forced to kind of have to dirt it. And Penix makes the mistake of dirting it, I think, to his right where Kyle Pitts is, and Kyle Pitts is not close enough. And if he dirts it to his left to be where Bijan is, they probably don't throw the flag for intentional grounding. And that one decision, unfortunately, cost us a 2 pump performance from Michael Penix, which would have been the first of his on the road in his career. If I'm not mistaken, I think I gave him a 2 pump performance for the Washington game, but that was a home game in that one. So I will take that L, guys. I got too big for my britches. I'm like, we're going to get a 2 pump Penix performance. And the main reason it was not because Penix played perfect in this game. He wasn't perfect in this game. He made plenty of mistakes, including that costly, intentional grounding. But essentially, late in the game, you kind of needed him to kind of put his team on his back and show that clutch gene that we've seen Michael Penix show before. And unfortunately, we haven't seen enough of this season to get the Falcons the wins. And, that gene was out there gening, if I'm going to make up a word, right? He had some big time throws on that potential game tying drive. Again, John Parker Romo. Yes. You're going to catch all these L's. You had the one-handed grab to Bijan, which was a great catch by Bijan. A lot of great catches in this game. The 40-yard bomb to Drake London on the double move where he mossed Christian Gonzalez. You saw him get outside the pocket, extend the play, throw back across his body, hit Kyle Pitts right in the chest. And then, of course, Kyle Pitts dropped it. And I was like, Kyle, man, you were doing so great this year. Like, why did the old Kyle Pitts show up for the first time this year on that particular play? But fortunately for the Falcons, that was a 3rd down. They went for it on the 4th down, and Drake London made an excellent catch, a one-handed catch on the fade to, in theory, tie the game up. And then John Parker Romo came out there. But you saw some earlier great plays from Michael Penix as well, 15-yard scramble where he showed more juice on that run than he had shown at any point in his career, where he was like, it's 2nd and 14. I'm getting these 15 yards. And we haven't really seen Michael Penix do that. He's always been a little tentative when it comes time to tucking it and running. And you saw that on an earlier scramble where he was potentially going to be in a position to dive for the end zone, and he slid a little short of the goal. Very Matt Ryan-esque on that particular slide. But you saw plenty of play extension from Michael Penix. You saw plenty of creativity, which is one of those things that when we talk about the quarterback and really fixating on the things that he is doing, isolating him from the offense, right? So much of it, the discourse surrounding this Falcons offense is about, the play calling and how is the play calling helping or hurting various players. But when we can sort of isolate, okay, where are the things that Penix is taking control over? When he gets outside the pocket, is he making the right throws, the right plays, all those various things? And he was able to do that a number of times in this game. And so we give Michael Penix credit for that. And that's what, leads to a potential 2-pump performance, even if you can sit there and nitpick and say, yeah, he made some mistakes. Yeah, there's a couple of passes and balls that he would want back and whatnot. But speaking of, the things surrounding Michael Penix, when we're talking about him in isolation, let's talk about Zac Robinson's play calling, which is a weekly topic of discussion. I didn't have a problem with Zac Robinson's play calling in this game. Certainly by no means perfect. We saw a kind of a soft benching of Charlie Warner in this game, where the Falcons had been primarily a 12 personnel offense, along with their 11 personnel, is about 56-44 type of split, or 56-40, I think, with like 5% other. This season, about 40% 2 tight end sets at 12 personnel. Today, we didn't really see any 12 personnel at all. From what I gather, I think Charlie Warner only played 5 snaps in this game. And instead, the Falcons really leaned into 21 personnel, which is 2 running backs on the field, where they use a lot of Bijan sort of motioning him out, getting him out wide, with Tyler Algier in the backfield. And we've seen basically, a lot of those plays over the last, 2 months with this Falcons offense, where they would put Charlie Warner in the backfield and essentially treat him like a oversized fullback in pass protection. And instead they had Tyler Algier doing that, which I know is something that a lot of people, myself included, have been wanting to see. I just haven't been as vocal as others, being like, they have to do this or else type of thing. So it felt like the Falcons were throwing some new wrinkles out there, as we've discussed many times on this pod, when it comes to Zac Robinson, after we spent all offseason being like, we need to see Zac Robinson evolve this offense. We saw a little bit of evolution. It's by no means, all the pieces are fitting together. We'll see what the film shows upon rewatch later this week when we do the extended and all 22 review. But for me, it's a lot of it is like, you're never going to love Zac Robinson's offense. So like, I'm not expecting him to go out there and call a perfect game. I'm not expecting him to go out there and look like, Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or, Kevin O'Connor or whoever else you want to put in that panel, even Josh McDaniels, the Patriots offensive coordinator. But like, to me, this was a step in the right direction, because this offense, hopefully we will see this offense being a little bit closer to what we want to see in the back half of this season. And, a big part of this season, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And when we're talking about evaluating some of these young players like a Michael Penix, you want to see him, grow, right, with this offense, and seeing this offense improve, and him improve upon some of the struggles that he's had, be more of that creator, that decision maker, that operator, all those types of things. And I felt like the play calling, at least today, and again, we'll see if it holds up under more scrutiny when we get to the all 22 later this week, but I felt like it was a step in the right direction. It's not all the way there. And again, if they can continue to make steps in the right direction, maybe we'll get to a point by the end of this month, maybe, where we are looking at this offense and be like, okay, it took 3 months, or rather 3 months longer than we would like it to be, but Zac eventually was able to figure it out, and this offense is starting to fire on all cylinders, and that will allow Penix to do whatever he needs to do in the back half of the season. So we'll see if the Falcons, if this is getting the ball rolling, or is this just, 1 step forward, 2 steps backward type of performance for this Falcons offense. But there's still more positive to talk about with the Falcons offense. We'll talk about Drake London's big day as well. When we turn our attention to the defense, we'll talk about Jalon Walker, as well as some of the other things that the Falcons need to clean up on that side of the ball as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. With the NBA season being back, there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And so if you miss, the next tip off for the Atlanta Hawks or whoever your favorite NBA team, or you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel is going to have all those live bets on everything you need, from who's going to score next to any of those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine those live bets into a same game parlay, bet a little, win a lot. You get a shot for a bigger payout, and it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making a late game push. So head on over to FanDuel.com right now, and if you sign up as a new customer, you'll get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That means all you got to do is put down $5, and if that bet wins, you'll get 300 bills in bonus bets only at FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And today's episode is also brought to you by Georgia Access. Has your health or family needs changed lately? Well, Georgia's got you covered. Georgia Access is our state's marketplace for Georgians to compare, apply, and enroll in health insurance plans that offer the best value for your individual needs. Open enrollment is happening right now. All you got to do is visit georgiaaccess.gov today. Georgia Access, health insurance for Georgia by Georgia. So talking about Drake London, Drake out here doing wide receiver one things. We saw him miss last week's game. He was sorely missed with the offense being virtually non-functional. We're blaming it on Kirk Cousins, right? I refuse to blame Kirk Cousins for anything in 2024, but we've turned a page in 2025 where we're gonna chalk up that Dolphins game. We're gonna push it, and we're just gonna blame it all on Kirk Cousins, even if that's not fair to do to Kirk. It is what it is. This is the world we live in now. We live in a Kirk. Kirk is everything. He cost the Falcons everything, right? And Drake is going to cost the Falcons quite a bit based on what he's doing when he's been healthy this year. Basically, that 49ers game aside, we've seen Drake play outstanding football in 3 of the last 4 games that he's played, and that included today with 9 catches, 14 targets, 118 yards, 3 tutties, ladies and gentlemen. My man is getting a hat trick, right? If you're hankering for hockey, Drake London has got you covered. So it was a back and forth game with Drake London going up against Christian Gonzalez. And if this was a boxing match, you probably would have had Drake behind on the scorecard in the early rounds, right? Because there were a number of times where they were trying to get Drake on some slants and whatnot. And Christian Gonzalez was able to kind of disrupt and contest those throws. That turnover on downs right after the 2-minute warning in the first half was a slant. You go to your number one guy against their number one guy, and their number one guy kind of won in that situation. But even though Drake was behind on the scorecard, he came in the end with the literal knockout play on that 40-yard bomb on a double move where he just basically mossed Christian Gonzalez. Had Jarvis Davis comparing it to, what Julio Jones did to Luke Kuechly so many years ago. And I didn't say anything on the Falcon Squad show, but I agree with Jarvis. It definitely reminded me of that type of play. And that play, Drake landed on Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez exited the game from that point on, and Drake took full advantage of that later with his 3rd touchdown. I believe, was it on Carlton Davis or was it on Marcus Jones? I can't remember. He had 2 of them were on Marcus Jones, definitely. I can't remember the 3rd one, who was that on, but Drake made an excellent catch on that. So he was really kind of the star of the offense today, and the star of the defense today was Jalon Walker. We welcome you back, Mr. Walker. We haven't seen you since that Bills game, and we really missed you, my guy. He came out there and he balled out. Right, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 3 pressures, forced fumble, a PBU. He did give up a touchdown to Pop Douglas early in this game. That was a good scheme by Josh McDaniels. If only another play caller could, look at that and be like, hey, I'm going to steal that. But, that's what happens when you put a guy in the backfield and then you get him matched up against a linebacker. And that's been something that, that's just Josh McDaniels, seeing like, oh, I know what the Falcons do, right? If we have the running back release to the left, that means the edge rusher on that side of the field, in this case, Jalon Walker, is going to drop into coverage. If we have the running back release to the right, that means the other guy is going to drop into coverage, and that would have been Leonard Floyd. And the Falcons took advantage of that the Patriots took advantage of that by, hey, we're going to put our fastest guy up against a linebacker and take advantage of this on the wheel route. And that led to Jalon Walker getting beat. But basically outside of that, Jalon Walker, and he took that personally, and he came back and made a number of crucial plays, including that sack strip. That was that huge momentum swing right before halftime. He came free on a stunt, was able to just knock the ball loose on Drake May. James Pierce scooped it up, nearly scored, but went to set up that touchdown to cut the lead to 7 points going into halftime. And so, other thing that stood out on defense, Stephon Diggs had a quiet game. Now, he did score on a play, but finished this game with just 3 catches, 38 yards. He did have a touchdown where he made a couple of guys miss after the catch. But, we'll see what the film says. But likely Diggs' quiet day today, to me, it's a testament to A.J. Terrell. Keeping him locked down, A.J. Terrell really had an outstanding game in this game, or at least was invisible in this game for the most part, because they weren't throwing at him in this game. And that's a testament, I think, to him, but we'll see if that's true once we dig into the film. And I only bring it up just because I know when we talked about this with Locked On Patriots on the crossover Thursday earlier last week, it was kind of like, okay, if we can take Diggs out of the game with AJ Terrell, and he was kind of the opinion, well, it's like, oh, well, the Patriots have other guys that can beat you. And the worry for me was, okay, if you take Diggs out of the game, does that open up an opportunity for someone like Kayshon Boutte, who's been a very effective deep threat going up against Mike Hughes, right? But Boutte exited this game pretty early, and so Mike Hughes was kind of, normal Mike Hughes game, not what we've seen from Mike Hughes the last couple of weeks, which have been bad Mike Hughes, but just normal, okay, functional replacement level Mike Hughes. But instead of Boutte being the guy that beat you, it was Pop Douglas that really gave the Falcons problems in this game. He finished with 4 catches, 100 yards, a touchdown. He had a 58-yard bomb against D. Alford. I think a couple of those catches were against D. Alford, not all of them, but really gave D. Alford the business. So as they say, Billy, come back. You can blame it all on me. And so we need Billy Bowman to come back. The last couple of weeks have been like, I don't think there's a lot of difference between D. Alford and Billy Bowman, at least as far as being the nickel cornerback today. But, as we talk about wanting to see these young players step up, it's like, okay, you had a nice run. It's time for Billy to come back. And so hopefully we'll get to see that. We'll have plenty more to talk about in this game as the week unfolds. But those are kind of my main takeaways. The last little tidbit, talking about players coming back from injury, the other takeaway coming out of this game is going to be the offensive line injuries, right? Matthew Bergeron, the Falcons left guard, exited the game early. He was replaced by Kyle Hinton. Chris Lindstrom, the Falcons right guard, exited late. He was replaced by Jovan Gwynn. And if those injuries linger into this upcoming Colts game, that's going to have major ramifications for this offense, particularly the run game. We talked about it when Caleb McGarry, the Falcons right tackle, went down. It basically, him and Chris Lindstrom, if the run game was a V8 engine, McGarry was 4 valves of that 8, valve engine, and Lindstrom was the other 4 valves as well. And so, you already lost McGarry for the season. You can't afford to lose Lindstrom at all at this point, because you even saw it in this game where the Falcons were just like, you know what? I don't think we're going to run the football against one of the best run defenses in the NFL, particularly with the injuries that the Falcons were dealing with. And, while other people may complain about that, I'm not going to necessarily spend too much worry being like, we weren't balanced against one of the best run defenses in the league with a bunch of backup offensive linemen in, that's not a gripe that you're going to hear from me this week. But we'll see on that front. So, Jarvis Davis suggested on the Falcons Squad show that they kick Elijah Wilkinson inside to right guard and potentially have Storm Norton play right tackle. We talked about this. It feels like this is the week where Storm Norton's going to come back. And so if Lindstrom does miss this upcoming game, I think he exited with a foot injury. So we'll hopefully get a positive update tomorrow on the podcast. But if he does miss, that's probably the best mechanism, because, we do not want to see Jovan Gwynn play any more snaps. But we'll see on that front. And if you're sitting here wondering, Yes, the German accent will be utilized all week long, right? Don't steal my joy, guys. I know some of you guys hate the German accent, but like, look, I have to talk about the Atlanta Falcons every single day. So I need something that gives me joy. It's not this team. And me doing a terrible German accent on the podcast is the thing that is going to give me joy. So don't steal my joy. So if you don't like the German accent, then, okay, right? No big deal. But I'm going to keep doing it. So that's it. A defiant way to wrap up the episode. I'm glad we're back to just normal Falcons losses. I mean, there's nothing normal about the way the Falcons lose a game. They miss an extra point, but like at the same time, it's like, oh, this is just a normal Falcons loss. Like, oh, okay, we're back, baby. So like, rather than just like the utter disappointment of last week against Miami, where it's just like, y'all not going to even show up to the stadium in a home game. This is a home game. You know what I'm saying? So, I may be all smiles, not because I'm like overjoyed or anything like that, but I'm just like, okay, I don't have to crash out this week. I can just talk about a normal Falcons loss, like any other loss that we've had over the last 20 years that I've been doing this. So that's it, guys. Appreciate you. Hopefully, better days are ahead for this team in Germany, included. And make sure you continue to make us your first listen by checking us out on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, if you want to get the scoop on all the other things that happen all weekend long across the NFL, in Week 9, Locked On NFL is going to have you covered 2 shows. That Shot of Espresso with Tyler Rowland, the Madman, and of course, headed to the barbershop for some real sports talk with Tony Wiggins. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every